The Minneapolis Foundation is a generous community, and what that means is that each one of us can do something to make the world a little bit better. But if each of us meets someone else, 1 + 1 is 3. That's the basic math of what the Minneapolis Foundation is. And so each year, what we try to do with our Minnesota meeting is take one big issue and put it on the civic agenda. Last year, it was water and environmental justice. And this year, of course, our topic is how do we get information, and it's so terribly important. And I want to ask you to be really honest with me. Can I see a show of hands of somebody who thinks we may be in a dark place right now? All right, so what I'm going to do is make it even darker for a minute, okay? It's going to be a very optimistic day, but just for 1 minute. If you think you're in a cave right now, I want you in your mind's eye to walk with me into a literal cave. We're in the south of France, where my wife and I were about 2 decades ago, and we walked underground into a cave and looked up at the walls and saw the most extraordinary paintings we've ever seen. In Lascaux and the other cave paintings that you see in southern France, you recognize that at the earliest moments of civilization, people wanted to tell a story. They wanted to pass on information. And in that case, they took whatever material they could find, and on the walls, they drew stories of their time. They talked about the animals that went by and the hunting that went by. We, as creative people, crave community and crave the idea of telling stories and passing information from one to the other. Now, of course, that's evolved a lot over time. In my own personal journey, I have more experience in journalism than certainly philanthropy or politics. I started as an editor of the St. Louis Park-Sun. Editor there meant you're the only person. Ironically, this morning, I'm walking around meeting people, and I meet Laurie Johnson. When I left that job in 1979, Laurie took my job. We just met this morning, Laurie. Good to see you. I went on to be a reporter for the Star Tribune, to publish the Twin Cities Reader, to help start Q Monthly, a gay and lesbian monthly. I went into internet broadcasting at the beginning of the internet period. We worked in TV stations with building internet. I worked at Minnesota Public Radio and PRI. I could go on with it. But if you think about my journey or the journey of any journalist, every one of those institutions is different today in a big way. And on some level, that's an incredibly scary thing. And today we're going to look at what's next. And when you think about what's next, I think about all the institutions that are in trouble and sold and merged and all these other things that are happening. But I also think a little bit, I want you to think about Vietnam. Why did this country get into Vietnam? There was no internet around. We only got information from a couple magazines, Newsweek and Time, and from 3 TV stations with the same agenda. And having that few media sources really allowed us to have misinformation for so many years that we bumbled into one of the largest fiascos this country ever had. I say that because I do think there are a couple ways of looking at this moment. And if you recognize that we're in a moment of transition, that is frightening. We may also be in one where more people have the tools to share information, where more people get information in a more relevant way, where more perspectives come forward. That is not a guarantee. And it's clear that one of the things we need to do as we set the table for that is to recognize that each of us has a deeper responsibility to try to understand what is the background of that information source, who are the people we can trust. We're in a very different world on all of that, and that's why we are exploring this issue today. And so look to us at the Foundation to do a couple things. We will do the core thing that we do, which is to help get resources to those who do good work in the community. And we're very proud to stand up here and say in the last 8 years, our coalition of fund holders have gone from putting out $40 million a year to $120 million a year. We are putting out more, but much more important, money matters. But so does the ability to bring people together. One of the reasons we have been so successful is because people recognize in this moment where you feel lonely, you are not alone. And you can do even more good by being together with others in this room. So look for us to do this throughout the year and again next year at another Minnesota meeting. Out in the hall, or whatever we call that wonderful place out there, are all sorts of really good nonprofits that are doing work in this field. Please get to know them over time. But more than anything else, get to know each other, open your minds, meet someone, share that information, and look to the Minneapolis Foundation to navigate us through.